Hey everyone, welcome to Impact Marketer. Today's guest is founder of Kenji ROI, an Amazon listing optimization agency, creator and host of the Danny Carlson podcast, where he interviews location-independent business owners, as well as the Actualize Freedom podcast, where he interviews millionaire e-commerce sellers. Producing more than 1,200 Amazon listings through his agency, being able to create a fully remote service agency to be able to live in Bali, publishing over 60 podcast episodes when the industry standard is to not make it past 10, having to truly overcome limiting beliefs, insecurities, and mental energy issues to get to where he is today. He's not only built his agency to $40K per month in revenue, but also has helped his first coaching client reach $10K per month with their service agency. Going from a speed demon that survived the downhill skateboard crash involving 5 cars, 2 of them being police cars, to a successful entrepreneur that's focused his work on serving aspiring agency owners. Please help me in welcoming Danny Carlson.
Awesome, man. Love that intro. It makes me sound like I know what I'm doing or something.
I hope so. That's the whole point. It's all a facade. Cool, man. So happy to have you on, Danny.
Happy to be on, man.
All right, awesome. So on today's Talk of the Day with Rony episode, where we talk about mindset, we got Danny on the show. And yeah, man, let's go straight into the first question. How has moving to Bali helped improve your mindset?
Yeah, it's definitely improved my mindset a lot just because there's a really big conscious community here in Bali. So you're much more likely to run into people that they take their mindset and they have a lot of meditation practices and are open to crazy things like Tantra and a whole bunch of like crazy words that people wouldn't necessarily want to get into in the West because it's just seen as crazy out there. But Bali is kind of the place for all of that crazy conscious exploration and people who are much more likely to have some kind of self-inquiry built into their lives. So moving here has allowed me to surround myself with a lot more people like that, have access to a lot of workshops and like retreats and stuff like that that really dive into these topics and just make it a lot bigger part of my life. And it's impacted my mindset in a really great way.
So you've mentioned Tantra. What exactly is Tantra?
Yeah, and so like the first thing people think about is like sexual, right? And Tantra does have to do with sexual energy too, but it's more to do with, the masculine, feminine energies, not necessarily in a sexual context, right? And just becoming a lot more aware of those energies, even in things like, speech or the way your body moves, or like you can just feel like feminine energy just emanating off of people, right? Or masculine energy. And just being a lot more conscious of that, it's much farther reaching than just sexuality.
Interesting. So you go to Tantra events to experience these different energies and to develop a practice of being more aware of them?
Yeah, for me, anything that like makes me more aware of just subtle energies and focus, like where I'm focusing my brain, and just the more honed that skill gets of just becoming aware of what is happening in my brain and what is happening with the energies around me, the more I can translate that into what I do in my business and focusing on actually getting really complex problems done, focusing on shutting down negative thought loops when they come up, because that's probably the most challenging thing about starting your own business is that you will have all these negative thoughts constantly coming up with all the fires that come up in your business. Mm-hmm. And just maintaining a really good attitude and mental headspace to keep doing the things that you need to do to put your business forward every single day, even when shit is hitting the fan, is one of the biggest benefits of doing practices like Tantra or meditation and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Could you maybe walk us through an example of practicing Tantra, just because I think that's so foreign to people in the West?
Yeah, it can be something as simple as like, I was at a retreat last week and we went through this exercise where we pair up with people, typically masculine and feminine, like one man, one woman. And the woman would be starting on the outside. And as the man, I would give signals like come closer, closer, closer. And then she would slowly walk towards you. And the goal in this exercise is to really just become aware of, how does that energy change? Like as she's walking closer, like can you feel the energy and the difference? And then just like play with that and sit there get used to it, and then closer and closer and closer until eventually like you're pretty much face to face, where you could probably reach out and kiss them if that, but that's not the exercise, right? But like just really noticing the subtleties in how the energy shifts as, with the space proximity and, obviously each other's bodies are like having different kinds of reactions too when you get like that close, and just trying to gain more awareness of it basically.
Super fascinating. And how has, I guess, that, just because we're on that, how has Tantra affected your business? Because you were mentioning, the mindset shifts translating into your business.
Yeah, and this is not exclusive to Tantra, but like that exercise that I mentioned and similar ones where you're just really, the goal is to just try to become aware of, these subtle energies and what's happening in your brain as these things are happening. That practice allows me to have a lot more control over where my brain's going throughout the day. So on a very simple level, that's like focusing on something, right? So noticing when you are losing focus and going off in a different tangent and then bringing it back to your focus allows you to get more done, obviously. And then there's the shutting down the negative thought loops. It's a really powerful thing too. Like something's going bad and then your negative thought loop can go spiral into something like, oh, this is something even worse is going to happen because of this. And if I don't do this, and this is going to happen. And identifying those and shutting them down sooner is one of the benefits of doing practices like Tantra and just like spending more time developing that in the brain.
Okay. So imagine a scenario, someone's going through a negative thought loop. There's a little fire in one of the businesses they're trying to put out. They haven't had this lengthy mindfulness practice. How would you advise them to get through that moment?
Well, it's all about awareness. So the second that you become the conscious observer, it's you observing yourself in the situation, 90% of the power of that negative thought goes away. So maybe that still is the situation where, something potentially bad is going to happen. But what the actual pain in that scenario is you thinking about it. So like the actual thought of that negative thing happening is where all of the pain exists. So if the negative thing hasn't happened yet, there's nothing to be concerned about. You can recognize that it is a possibility and then dispel it from your mind. And if you have awareness of this thought, you have the power to dispel it from your mind. So the first step is just awareness. So recognize that it is a possibility and then shift your brain to something else, just as simple as shifting it, because there's no point in making real pain happen inside of your brain for something that has not yet occurred or has occurred in the past or whatever. It's like in the conscious moment, like why would you project that pain into the present moment in your current consciousness?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. And you moved from Canada to Bali, but before you moved to Bali, your business had already taken off. So how was dealing with self-doubt and these negative thought loops, how did you handle them before moving into Bali?
Really in a similar way. Like I've gotten a lot better with this since moving to Bali and really immersing myself into this more, but I still definitely had a daily meditation practice and was somewhat along the same lines back when I was living in Canada. And making the decision to move to Southeast Asia as well was another one of those moments where there's lots of self-doubts and a lot of potentially negative things that were running through my brain. And back then I wasn't as conscious of it as I am now. It was more difficult, and there were a few times where I just had to like recognize that there still is a lot of fear in this area, but I had faith that if I just went for it, then it would sort itself out, right? I didn't know how, but I knew that if I just went for it, then the solutions would probably present themselves, right? And I think that's kind of one layer back, like not going as deep as really looking at your thoughts from the observer and trying to recognize them and just get rid of them. That's kind of one step back that maybe is a little bit easier for people if you're newer to these kind of practices.
Got it. And, on Facebook, you posted about quitting alcohol, and it was initially supposed to be a 1-year thing. and you've chosen to do it for, I'm assuming, the foreseeable future. What was that process like, and like what were your takeaways afterwards?
Yeah, it's one of the best things I've done for my health, for sure. So a little bit of background with me drinking. I used to party like 3 times a week, probably when I was from like 15 or 16 all the way until I was like 23 or 24. So did a ton of partying, going out to the bars and house parties and whatever. Um, and towards the end of that, I just was not getting the same kick out of it. It was just like you go out and get drunk and just notice all the downside effects and less of the upside effects. It wasn't as fun. And so I started drinking less. And even when I was drinking less, let's say I would have 2 beers or even 1 beer that night, just like with some friends over dinner or something like that. And then I would start to notice the downside effects even more the less I started drinking. So like my body was not used to drinking like 6 beers in a night or something like that. It was only used to like 1 or none. And I would really notice the effects afterwards, even from 1 beer. Like the next day, my brain would be a lot more foggy. And so at that point, I just realized like there's really no upside effect for me to gain from drinking alcohol. So I might as well just get rid of it altogether. And I thought it would be a lot more difficult than it was. But after about 3 weeks or a month, it just felt very natural to just say no and just not put myself in those situations of a bunch of people going out and drinking. And the biggest part of that is really you're going to be changing who you're spending a lot of your time with. If a lot of your friends that's what your friend group does is go out drinking, then you're probably going to, well, in the beginning, maybe you're going to go out with them and you're going to be the sober one and you're not going to drink anything. But eventually you're going to realize like, hey, honestly, I need to surround myself with some different people who are more aligned with the lifestyle that I want to live. Because to be honest, it's not very fun going out with a bunch of people who are drinking and you're not drinking. And 2, it's probably a sign that you need to find different types of people to surround yourself with and become for the next stage in your life, right? So it's been a really great process, but not as difficult as I thought it would be. And I encourage anyone who is interested in it to give it a shot.
Is it realistic to be able to do that in Western culture? Or even in Bali, I would assume a lot of people go out drinking. Like replacing your friends,
Yeah.
is it that easy?
Oh, and that's the most difficult part of this whole thing is that it is like, it's not an easy thing to do, replace your friends. But it comes down to what your motivations are, right? So let's say that all your friends are drinkers and they're partiers and stuff like that. And you, if you listen to the podcast, you're probably a little bit more ambitious. You probably have your own business, or you want to start your own business. You want to achieve some things in your life. And you really got to ask yourself are the people that you're surrounding yourself with right now conducive to this new you that you want to transform into, right? Because to achieve success with a new business and like a completely new source of income and new life, like you have to become a completely different person, right? And as much as you might like these friends, you kind of have to make a choice, because having these same friends is going to hold you back from becoming the person that you need to be to achieve what it is you want to achieve. So while it may be very difficult and you have a bunch of good times together, you don't have to like piss on all the good times you had together, but you maybe have to let go of any idea that they are a good group of people to continue to have in your life. So not an easy process, but really it's the only way to become the person that you need to become to achieve your own business, your own, your new life.
When you did that, because I went through a very similar process, and I would say it's probably one of the most loneliest parts of the journey. Did you find yourself feeling too extreme on how often you cut off people in your life?
Yeah, like this most recent one that I went through, it was tricky. It was right around the time where I was quitting drinking and I was just looking for a new friend group. But I was trying a bunch of things out. I was trying a lot of yoga classes. I was, trying out some dance stuff, just kind of feeling what was going to be my next group of people, because I typically in the past have just found communities of people around sports, extreme sports, longboarding, skiing, stuff like that. So I think it's important to be experimenting and just looking for new passions and new ways to meet these people. And for me, that was acro yoga. Once I found that, I found a group of people that were more aligned with the person I wanted to become. They were much more open and honest. I think it's really important to think of it in terms of like your dating life as well. So there's like a lot of women also who are into acro yoga. There's just like a good community like that. Like, I mean, let's be real here. Like a lot of other extreme sports I've been involved in are just predominantly male, and there's just like 95% dudes, which is cool. That's your bros. But then like, you know, you gotta look at honestly, how are you going to meet women? How are you going to meet like potential partners? It's part of your happiness if you're going to be optimizing your life for happiness, right? And people who do acro yoga are typically not drinkers, typically are into fitness, and they take their health very seriously. And they're typically a lot more open-minded people, because you kind of have to be if you're going to be bouncing on people and be open to that much touch and everything like that. So once I found it, it was a little bit of a journey going through some lonely times, but it was more than worth it once I tapped into that community.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much for the insight. How to live a well-balanced life and be able to carry someone with one arm.
Yes.
All right, and that was today's episode. Thanks, Danny.